Tom, are you okay?
I lost her.
Her?
She was going to be this epic, trilogy-worthy character. I was going to be the hottest writer in Hollywood. But I can't get past Act 1!
You need some writers group therapy. Hello and welcome to Writers Group Therapy.
I'm Tom.
And I'm Roshni. We're writers helping writers. Are you ready for your session? The doctors are in. And make sure you check us out online at writersgrouptherapy.com. You can also find us on Twitter and Instagram at WG Therapy individually.
I'm Tom_Loveman on Twitter and Tom Loveman on Instagram.
And I am at Moonlily Music on Instagram and at Roshni Lumino on Twitter. Guess what, Tom?
Oh, what?
A new Star Wars trailer dropped!
Oh my god!
But we are not going to talk about that today.
Okay. Yeah, we have to dissect that some more, so next time.
Yes, because we are kind of
Okay.
overdue for a Star Wars episode,
Yeah,
right? We haven't
yeah.
talked about it enough this year.
But since we're going to our new format, we have a lot to talk about today.
Lot to unpack. A lot's been happening.
Yeah, so I looked up what the WGA thing has been going on with the agencies, and it's heated up. It's in August the WGA and the agencies kind of like gave up, and then the WGA charged they filed charges in federal court against the agencies for racketeering and antitrust. It's getting like real like Al Capone style now.
I know it's weird because it kind of felt like for a while they just sort of all had this uneasy truce and buried the hatchet, and some agencies were even like, we stand with the WGA and we're going to sign your agreement and everything, and so it's like
Mm-hmm.
everything was going to be happy, and then all of a sudden it was like wham, like this kind of came out of left field, I think. I don't
Yeah,
know.
two smaller agencies, Bookwald and Kaplan Staller, are signed on to the WGA Code of Conduct. From what I read, they're mostly just like talent for literary agents, just representing writers. So they don't have the big what do you call it, roster of directors and actors that they're all trying to package. So they don't care that
Mm-hmm.
much about it. So they signed on. Some people thought like as soon as some of the smaller agencies signed on, there would kind of be a ripple effect, but
Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet. So I feel like we've kind of just hit the brakes while this thing goes through the courts now.
So I mean, racketeering and antitrust, if that goes through and the courts, I mean, let's just conjecture here because we're obviously, disclaimer, we're not in the rooms, we're not listening to the discussions, and we're not legal people. But if it did go through the courts and the courts decide in favor and said, yeah, you're guilty of racketeering and antitrust, what happens to the agencies? Do they dismantle them or like slap on the hand? I mean, that's a pretty big charge.
Well, antitrust in general would just be, like when one company owns too many parts of one industry and
Hmm.
they can kind of corner their market. Like if you want to buy our widgets, you have to buy the widgets from us because we sell the parts that make the widgets and the sales, system for the widgets and the software for the widgets. So they kind of control everything. So if you control the directors, the actors, the producers, the studios, you can kind of like tell like a writer, well, if you want to, sell the script, you're going to have to, let us do this packaging deal, and so we can make money off of the deal versus just off of representing you.
Hmm.
So that's where it comes in. So it kind of be like they'd have to divide up. So whereas some of the big agencies want to be technically producers,
Hmm.
they could have a production company, but they'd have to separate it from their talent agency or the literary agency.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of what that's kind of what the whole code of conduct was in the first place. Is like if you want to be an agency that represents writers, be an agency that represents writers, but
Yeah.
don't force us into deals that aren't in our best interest because you have these other business sectors in your company.
Yeah, because all it is just major, major conflict of interest by
Yeah,
signing on and doing all of it. Yeah. So do you think
right.
they would just dismantle the companies? Like be like, okay, you are only a talent agency and you're only a production company and never the two shall meet? Or do you think it would be like, do you think it would really like hurt the big agencies, the big four?
I don't know. And here's the thing is, I don't know that it would ever come to that because, you look at the politics right now and the courts, and they've been very corporate sided lately. They've been letting a lot of these giant mergers go through,
Hmm.
these, multi-billion-dollar mergers in the communications industry, the technology industry. and they really haven't. They're very anti-labor in Washington at the moment, it seems. So, and that's what the WGA is. It's a union.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what would happen if it did come to that. I mean, that's what I would expect, is that if they want to keep those various businesses, they'd have to kind of somehow firewall them off, so that the agents working for the writers were not affected by agents working for directors or producers, that and how they're connected to the studio. I just also read that the big agencies are skipping the parties for the Emmys this year,
Mhm.
because
Yep.
it'd be really weird if they were throwing a party that honors the writers that they're in a fight with. It would be very odd. So, and actually, I think CAA, they donated the money that they were going to spend on parties to a legal defense fund. That was before they did that before, but they're
Mhm.
it's the Motion Picture and Television Fund, for people in trying circumstances in the community. It's actually a really good a charity that they do a lot of work. They gave away $3 million last year in 34 states for people in need. So
Oh,
it's really
wow.
cool.
That is
But
nice.
yeah, but it's kind of like it's kind of hard to be mad at them for being so charitable. But the reason behind that is that they're not throwing a big party for everybody.
Yeah, but I mean, right now too, when you think about it with the Big 4 as well, um, they're not necessarily hurting because, yes, they don't have the writers right now, but they still have actors and producers and directors that they're, well, maybe not producers, but definitely directors and actors that they're representing. You know what I mean? So they're still
Yeah,
getting funds that way. But if all of the other, like if, like the Directors Guild and like SAG after were suddenly like, by the way, we're also taking our clients, then they'd be like, oh my gosh, we really got to look at this. So
yeah.
right now they're only losing like what, a third of their clients, but it could, who knows how to ripple down.
I think any contracts that were in place are still valid, so they still have their deals from before this all
Mhm,
happened. They can't make any new deals, but the old deals have to stand. So.
mhm, until they run out. Interesting. Said we did have a speaker recently, and she was great. What kind of
Oh
things did
yeah.
you pick up from her talk that
Well,
we could share with the group?
I was really interested in how she talked about the kinds of stories that she's interested in telling, and how
Mhm.
she's really in the diversity, making them less about silly high school romance type stuff, and also trying to make them more diverse, because we thought back on like the 90s and how very very white the Disney Channel was.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that was one thing. So, as an example, she mentioned, like she wants to see like refugee stories or border town stories or something like that. And I was thinking about it afterwards, and I'm like, well, I don't have that experience. I grew up in the Midwest. I lived a pretty charmed life. But I think at the crux of what she was saying is personal stories with diversity. You have a personal story.
Hmm.
I have a personal story. Instead of trying to make it this generic kind of, bland that you think will appeal to the masses, make it very personal, and somehow that'll actually stand out even more.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out how to repackage Reclamation for the Disney Channel. Can we skew it younger? Can we make Cassie a younger like genius in space or something? I don't know. I'm gonna look at it. We'll see.
Maybe she's trying to find her kid sister. I don't know. I don't know.
Hmm.
But
Well,
yeah.
she brought up Xenon in the 21st Century, which was a
Mhm.
Disney. I know if it was. I think it was a series of movies. I remember seeing one where it was kind of corny. The kids were on a space station
Mhm.
and almost destroying it and then saving the day. And I'm like, yeah, it's a real light version of Reclamation, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, when you think about it, and she didn't say this, this is just my conjecture, but really every story has already been written, honestly, at this point. So it's just a
Sure.
way of finding a new and personal spin on it, I think.
Hmm. Yeah. She also talked about like writing things that were off type, like like
Mhm.
typical. You have Hannah Montana. You had what's her name? Lizzie McGuire. You had what was the other one? All the perky little perfect bodies, perfect looks kind of thing,
Mhm.
because she felt like that wasn't realistic.
Yeah.
Kind of like the
Yeah.
Mindy Kaling, kind of like her stuff is all kind of, it's great stories, but you don't have to write it for casting it in such a way that is so narrow focused.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. No, it was really good. Really good. She very much champions diversity, I think, of thought and of like look. So that was
Mm-hmm.
good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what upcoming projects do you have? What's coming up with you?
Well, we've got Plan P Live coming up, Attack of the Giant Leeches.
Mm-hmm.
It's September 28th at the Complex in Hollywood. I wrote some jokes for the leeches, and it's a Roger Corman 1959 black and white kind of horror movie about some giant leeches in a swamp that start attacking people, and it's really funny. And we're going to have three giant leeches in the theater giving live commentary. There's three shows at 7, 9, and 11. It's $30. Tickets are at planplive.com.
Nice, nice. Yeah, so on my end, so excited. Finally finished
Dun dun
writing
dun.
everything for
Expat.
Expat. Yeah.
Woo-hoo.
Yeah, that's how
Yay.
exhausted I am from all the writing. I'm like, "What's the name of my show again?" So we're in production for it right now.
Yeah. I
Great
know you've been
cast. Yeah,
cranking on it. Yeah.
yeah, great cast, and I'm so excited to hear it'll turn out,
When do
so
you start recording?
later this month.
In September. Yeah. Okay. Cool. And then that doesn't, well, it'll be coming out in January, you said probably.
No, we're aiming for March 17.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
hold on there. Hopefully, I get some teasers or something soon.
Oh, yeah.
Start start promoting it, marketing it.
Yeah,
Cool.
I'm very excited about
Yeah.
that. So
So, kind of was wondering. So you putting this whole thing together? You're producing it. You wrote it. You're directing it. Are you directing it?
no,
No.
I'm not directing it.
Okay.
Um,
But you had to get a lot of people involved. So when you're
yes.
trying to do that, how do you get people to do stuff for you? How do you ask people to do so? How do you ask for things? That's always been my problem. Is I'm not good about just saying, hey, help me do something for me.
It's funny because I think a lot of times, especially for women, we're afraid to ask, but people ask us stuff all the time, and we're like, "Okay, yeah, a lot of this, because this is deferred, and so a lot of it, people are gonna have to do it just because they wanna do it for the love and, something for their real. My hope is that, we're launching a Patreon to go with it, and then from the Patreon, I wanna pay them for season 1 and then continue on, so, like, that's the hope.
Are you going to look for sponsors as well?
Not right away because I wanna see what the reaction is for it and then
Okay.
see what, sponsors kinda come up from it. I think a lot of times with asking for something, a lot of times it's just don't ask for too much sometimes, I feel. Like if you
Yeah.
don't know the person very well and they offer something, don't don't ask them for too much and don't expect too much. Like it's cool if it comes back to you, but don't be like as an example, when people, offer to read my pages. I'll send them some stuff and I'll be like, cool, and then I'll check back with them in a few weeks. And if they've read it, great. And if not, I'm like, as much time as you need. But I'm not like needling them, like, hey, have you read it? Have you read it? What do you think? Because they got lives too.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm the same way. It's like, yeah, first of all, yeah, think about what you're asking for. How much commitment are you asking for someone for something?
Hmm.
But usually I find if you ask someone for advice, they're usually pretty generous as long as it's not, hours of time. But like I just went to the Creators Society recently. They have
Oh,
their
yeah.
monthly mixers, and I became a member. I'm a member of the Creators Society, which is an animation networking group in Hollywood. And there's writers and directors and producers and artists and all kinds of people involved. It's really cool. And I met a lot of people. We shared business cards, and some of them are at pretty cool companies. One I met who's at Bento Box, which is the company that does Bob's Burgers, which is a favorite of mine. So I was like asking him all kinds of questions, and he was and I was asking him things like, well, how did you get started in the business? What would you tell writers to do? And actually, I'm going to hopefully have him come to our writers group meeting
That would be
soon
great.
in the
Yeah.
future. Yeah, but if you're just in a casual setting like that, just hey, I've got a question, I've got some advice, or can I get some advice from you? And they're usually really, generous because they're there to do that. That's networking. And then, if they give you their card and they say, hey, let's connect online, or, then, you can maybe ask them for a little more, help or a little more mentorship.
Hmm.
I wouldn't go, too crazy like, hey, give me a job. I would never do that unless
Yeah.
unless, it came up in conversation, like, what are you doing right now? It's like, well, I'm doing this, but I've been looking for something like that, and that's kind of a subtle way to do it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I think a lot of, I mean, and this kind of goes back into networking, which we've talked about before, but I think too, when, if your ultimate goal is to like get a job or, you know, get somewhere with a connection that you've made, you're better off trying to make them your friend than like asking for it immediately. Some of my mentors turned into really good friends, and then it ended up they would offer me, job advice or tell me about job leads or something like that. But it all started from like a casual thing where I think I would email them and be like, "Hey, I saw this article that you wrote, and can you tell me what your thoughts are behind it?" It's just like casual conversation and just taking an interest
Yeah.
in their life.
Oh, well, at the event I just went to, I saw a couple of the people who have come to our writers group and spoken already. So I've seen them 3 or 4 times now at different places, and you kind of, they know who you are, they know what you're doing,
Hmm.
and it's more casual. You don't have that like standoffishness, like somebody who's in the industry who they know you're cool. You're not gonna like hit them up for anything big,
Hmm.
so they're much more relaxed. Like, oh yeah, say hi to Roshni for me because you weren't there,
Yeah.
and they're very congenial and they're very nice. And like I said, like one of them, I actually am trying to work on a pitch book for an animated show. I just shot him an email and said, hey, I got an opportunity to pitch this to another studio. They say doing a beat book is the best way to go. What do you think? And he was like, yeah, that's definitely the best way to go. Make sure you do it this way and don't put too much time or money into it. And like gave me some good guidelines for how I should approach it.
Hmm.
And it was just really it was it wasn't anything that was going to take him a lot of time. Probably took him a minute or two to write the email, but it was, great to, I showed him that I'm working on stuff and that I'm receptive to advice and that I respect his, time because I didn't ask him a lot. I just
Mhm.
asked him a couple short questions.
That was what I was trying to remember. Thank you, Tom. You jogged my memory. But one of my mentors turned friends, that was actually his best piece of advice to me, was if you're trying to impress somebody, when they give you advice, take it and then go back and show them that you took their advice. So
Ah,
you
yeah.
totally provided that as an example. That's exactly it.
Woo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's true
No,
because
that
it's like
makes a
if
lot
they're
of
gonna
sense. Yeah.
take even like that 5 seconds to invest in you, you need to show them that it mattered and it meant something, that you weren't like, "Oh, that's great. I'll just do whatever I
Hmm.
want," but that you actually took it to heart.
No, it's been, being in our writers group and doing this podcast, we've really had a great chance to meet a lot of people. And, that's kind of the best advice is you have to get out and meet people because that's how you make connections. And then, you kind of build that network of people who are willing to, just, let you bend their ear a little bit.
Yeah.
And eventually might be someone who says, hey, come on, I want you to work on a project with me. Or I know a guy who's looking for someone who you can, maybe you can work with. So that's the kind of the relationships you build and just being genuine about it and not being overly like needy, like, oh, you have to help me, you have to help me.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
speaking of really great people we just randomly met,
Ah,
we have an interview with Grant Moran coming up. Welcome.
hi Grant.
Thank you guys so much. It's so great to be speaking with you.
Yay! So he is an animation writer and producer. He's done a lot. He's taught a lot of places. And he's also the founder of a group called Kids Entertainment Professionals for Young Refugees, or Kepyr, which is actually very fascinating. So we want to talk about all of it.
Great.
All right.
Let's go.
Well, let's start with your writing. So how long have you been doing animation writing, and what are some of the things we might know you from?
Well, I started in the early '90s. I think my very first assignment may have been on Bobby's World,
Oh,
uh,
wow.
and and
Great
Yeah.
show.
yeah, I got that was my first produced I think assignment. But I did some development work at Warner Brothers Animation in the early '90s. A live action spec script of mine had gotten into the hands of Tom Ruger there. And even though it was not an animation script, he reached out to me and asked me if I'd ever thought about writing animation. And I was so green at that point that I didn't even know there were writers in animation. Uh, so But so he started kind of like showing me the ropes and giving me a few kind of like test assignments and a little development work here and there. So I actually did some early development work on the Batman series, for instance, and there was a primetime Wile E. Coyote series they were developing that they had me work on, and then eventually that led to a couple of assignments on Tiny Toons, and then I did some development work on Animaniacs, and yeah, and then meanwhile I was getting my own assignments, and I think Bobby's World was probably my first produced assignment. But then around 1993 or four, I went on staff at Warner Brothers Animation full time, and stayed there through
Wow.
1999 or 2000, working on a whole bunch of stuff,
Wow.
from
Yeah.
like Tiny Toons and Sylvester and Tweety Mysteries, and a lot of development work. I did a lot of development for them, and that's sort of the through line in my whole career. Before I even got into animation writing or writing at all, I was someone in theater, professional theater, who developed new plays with playwrights. So I'd been doing that for
Huh.
10 years in professional theater developing new plays. And so That's sort of always been in my blood, kind of working with other people and helping them kind of like, I say it's kind of like being a midwife. So I help people give birth to this thing they're trying to create. Yeah, which involves just a lot of listening and kind of like getting inside the creator's head and trying to understand what they're trying to do and helping them do it.
Can I just say you have made my childhood heart so happy. Those were all the shows I loved growing up. So you are awesome. You are so awesome.
I can't take I can't take very much credit for any of them, except that I was lucky enough to get a chance to kind of touch greatness by being allowed to kind of play briefly with a bunch of those things. The
What drew you to animation? I mean, was it kind of happenstance, or you said you wrote a spec actually?
Yeah, so I mean, the thing that drew me to writing at all was just I'd been doing this development work in theater for 10 years and enjoying it tremendously. I never could conceive of doing anything else. And then my wife and I decided we wanted to have children. And I finally realized for the very first time that I had never made a dime in my life.
Oh wow.
And I thought, well, life's, you've been having a lot of fun and enjoying your work, but, there really is not a whole lot of money in theater, even professional theater. And so I thought maybe it was time to try my own hand at writing. And here I was in Los Angeles. So I started specking live action, television scripts. And like I said, I never had any thought about animation at all. It didn't even occur to me that was a possible profession. But one of the first scripts I spec'd was The Wonder Years, and
Wow.
that was the script that ended up in Tom Ruger's on his desk, and he read it and thought that it showed something. I don't know what he was thinking, but he reached out to me and he's sort of the guy who started my career for me.
That is
Cool.
awesome. And I'm looking at your resume and you've done a lot with Mattel as well.
Yeah, recently I have. I just developed for them believe it or not, the first ever Barbie animated television series. I mean, that sounds incredible, doesn't it? I mean, she's been with us for 60 years and she's never had her own TV series. That's going to be one of the last of the great classic kids uh, toy icons that has
Yeah,
never.
they gave her a ton of like straight to video projects, I think, didn't
Absolutely.
they?
Yeah, so
Not a
that's
TV show, yeah.
yeah, millions of those. In fact, there are more Barbie long forms than there are James Bond movies.
Wow. And I will
So
admit to watching it because a friend of mine got me into them. So I do know the show.
yeah,
How
uh,
fun.
but then they finally decided they wanted to do a series for Netflix, and they hired me to develop that, and then I was the head writer on that project.
Wait,
That is
is
awesome.
this a James Bond Barbie show? 'Cause
Keep up,
that
Tom.
sounds pretty
Keep up,
cool,
Tom.
actually. I think we're onto something here.
Really, it sounds like
Double O Barbie.
So you're still doing the animation writing, or are you full time now into your nonprofit?
no, no, no. I'm still very much doing my animation writing and producing. The nonprofit Keeper is an all volunteer organization, so we take pride in the fact and want people to know that nobody associated with Kepyr makes a penny from anything we do. We are affiliated with UNICEF, so they are the beneficiary of everything we do.
Oh, wow. So tell us more about this organization. Like, how did you get involved and what was the inspiration for it and everything?
Like a lot of us, I was sitting around in 2016 and starting to see, pictures and reports of, little bodies washing up on beaches in the Mediterranean because of the Syrian refugee crisis, and it just really, punched my heart, and I started looking into the issue more because of that, and I realized that the Syrian refugee crisis was just the tip of the iceberg. We're currently living through the greatest child refugee catastrophe worldwide since World War II.
Wow.
Um, One out of every 200 children on the planet today is a refugee. That's over 50 million children worldwide. It's a humanitarian disaster, and I started looking around for once the enormity of it became clear to me. I started looking around for some way that I could like multiply my measly whatever $100 that I could like give to somebody doing something about this problem. I thought there clearly must be something in the kids' entertainment industry where we're all kind of like putting our little $100, $50 together so that we can make a bigger contribution, as a group, and was sort of thunderstruck that it turned out there was no such group. There was no way on a grassroots level for average people who make their living through kids' entertainment to kind of go to one place to learn about the crisis and then, with a simple click, to make a donation of any amount directly to UNICEF, with, as I said, not a penny going to Kepyr. And so I just thought, I've known people in this business for 30 years now, and I just had a very strong feeling that if more people knew what I knew, who do what we do for a living, it would be a very simple matter. If you gave them an easy way to do something about it, it'd be a very simple thing to kind of galvanize support for that cause.
Wow, yeah, that's pretty incredible. So all the people in the organization, I mean, they don't all have to be in the entertainment business, but most of them are?
Yeah, we have almost 400 people on 4 continents who are supporters, and we are growing all the time. Um, so much so that we now have to. We have not been a nonprofit until this point because there was no need for us to be, because anyone who made any kind of a contribution, as I said, it all goes directly to UNICEF. So we're just a volunteer organization, sort of educating the industry about the scope and scale of this crisis, and then through our CrowdRise portal, just giving people a very simple way to make a donation and kind of stand together as a professional community, for the most vulnerable of the people that we go to work for every day.
Wow.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. And it's KEPYR.org, keeper.org.
Yes.
If you want to check that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
how are writers able to get involved? I mean, is it just like an awareness thing, or do people actually like create things to do you know what I'm saying? Like create things to help foster awareness or like go visit the children or like
That's a
how hands
great
on?
that's a great question. So yes, we have artists, writers, voice actors, executives, distributors, production people, people from every, and games, feature animation, TV animation, publishing, anything to do with kids entertainment. That's what we see as like, this is our community. Um, and But as I said, we're all volunteer, and it just started with like me starting to call up a few friends, and then a few of them calling up their friends. And Because it's all volunteer, and people have very busy lives, and they have families, and there's only so much you can ask of people. I thought from the beginning that we should try and really limit what we were trying to do so that we could do something well, as opposed to trying to spread ourselves too thin and do 10 things not so well. So for the first 2 years, all we have done is we sponsor an online fundraiser for UNICEF for 2 weeks in the month of June. Um, and June 20th every year is World Refugee Day, so we piggyback on a lot of the publicity surrounding that, and we just do a massive online campaign reaching out to everyone in our business around the world to again make them aware of the issue, and then to give them this very simple way to go to the CrowdRise site and make a donation. Well, that's now gotten so that's been so successful, and so many people have come out of the woodwork, trying to support, wanting to support us, that we're now starting for the first time to do more than just that one thing. So, for instance, breaking news for your audience. This is
Ooh.
this is an exclusive scoop. Yeah.
Oh boy.
We are producing at the Comedy Store on the Sunset Strip on October 20th a night of stand-up comedy, uh, headlining Patton Oswalt.
Oh,
Wow.
fun.
Cool.
And so the idea was we wanted to assemble a group of performers who have thriving stand-up careers, but who also have a significant footprint in kids and family entertainment. So Patton was someone that a few of us had worked with on Word Girl on PBS, and so we knew him through that and reached out to him. And God bless him, he said, "Count me in, I'll be there." So
Wow.
we're putting together just an amazing, amazing lineup of talent, and that's October 20th at the Comedy Store. And publicity will begin in earnest for that in
Awesome.
mid September. But it's going to be just an amazing night.
Cool. Can people buy
Wonderful.
tickets through Kepyr.org or look at the Comedy Store or?
People are going to, interestingly, UNICEF, who have been, by the way, great to work with. I should say they're the first people I reached out to because I thought global kids entertainment business, global kids catastrophe. How about we then find what is the global, brand, big brand name in global children's philanthropy? And so they were the first people I contacted, and they are absolutely thrilled with this idea. There's never been a grassroots attempt before to organize people who work in our business to support the work they do. They actually have their own ticketing site. So ticketing is going to be through UNICEF's proprietary ticketing site. Another way that people can be assured that every cent of the money they pay for their tickets is going directly to UNICEF. And again, that Kepyr does not
Wow.
a penny from any of this.
That's true.
Is there any chance this is going to be like recorded or televised or?
Well, we're hoping to do that. This is the first time we're doing it. And again, because our bandwidth is a little bit limited, we have a core group of just about maybe 15 to 20 volunteers, and the rest of the 400 supporters around the world are people who have donated to us or have helped us in other ways. But the people who actually make this organization work and devote their time on a regular basis, whether it's for graphics or managing social media, or now we have a woman who just approached us 6 months ago with this idea to do the comedy show. She's producing that. That's sort of the way we work on this very kind of like shoestring sort of basis. So I think organizing, while that's the plan long term, because we intend this to be a yearly event at the Comedy Store, this year I think it was all we could do to kind of just again organize this one event well. So we're kind of, we're getting our feet wet and learning as we go along. Luckily, the woman who approached us, her name is Aurora Simkovich. She's an animation writer. Her background before starting in this business was as a manager of comedy clubs in San Francisco. So she knows the world. She knows the world of clubs and stand-ups and everything. And so she was the perfect person to kind of
That's great.
take on this project for us. Yeah. So what do writers do? I mean, getting back to your original question, there have been writers. There are writers who are part of that core group of volunteers who do a lot of stuff for us. There's a writer and dear friend of mine named Johnny Hartman. Who's done a lot of work in the business, and he has really thrown himself into this project. And he is, among many things he does for us, he is sort of in charge of writer outreach for Kepyr. So whether you're a writer in games or a writer in features or publishing or whatever you are. He's the guy in charge of kind of like finding out where you are and contacting you and letting you know what we're up to and kind of encouraging you to like support us. So and he obviously takes part, as do some of the other writers who were involved in this project, with like any PR materials we do or stuff that we put on the website or on our Facebook page. They obviously are critical in making sure that the writing is good. But in terms of other projects, I hear what you're getting at there, and that's something that's a matter of ongoing discussion. It's like, how can we leverage the talent that we have? We're leveraging the voice talent with this show at the Comedy Store, but yes, how do we leverage writer talent for this? That's, as I said, that's a matter of ongoing conversation, and we're definitely looking to do that. But we haven't landed on the perfect project yet.
Well, we're really excited that you announced that on our podcast.
Yeah, it's
we're,
cool.
we're so happy to be, helping you spread the word about it.
Yes, no, literally, no one knows about this except you now.
Wow.
Well, and our listeners. Hello, everybody. Now you know too. What a great cause. So Kepyr, KEPYR.org. Check it out. UNICEF for the tickets. And Grant, if people want to find you personally, how can they contact you?
I'm at grant@kepyr.org is my Kepyr email. And then for other, non-Kepyr related things, my professional email is grant.moran@globalmonstermedia.com.
Cool. So everybody, be sure you check it out. In October is the show. There'll be more details on their website. So go there. And Grant, thank you so much for taking the time to go with us.
Thank you so much.